I wish that going forward, the 0.5% that is specified in the Constitution can be applied to the latest audited accounts, and I do hope that the National Assembly, whose accounts are used as a basis for this allocation, can fast-track their consideration of audit reports so that we get the very most recent audited accounts of the national government funds, and that way perhaps Homa Bay will get more than 176 million.
Senator Kajwang, do you want to be informed by the Honorable Senator?
Indeed, my neighbor and younger brother can inform me, right, particularly if my fly has not been zipped up.
Senator Kajwang, I think that I really share in your pain with regards to what you're getting in this particular schedule. And I think that what I wanted to inform you about is that since the inception of the Constitution, when this particular fund was established, it is important to note that our biggest struggle has been to implement this particular part of the Constitution. Because, Senator Kajwang, if you look at it very critically, if we go by the financial year 2022-2023, because I sit in this committee, by now, the National Treasury should have given this fund 54 billion. And today, what we are struggling with in this bill, Senator Kajwang, we are merely struggling to get 10 billion, because what had been allocated, what had actually been availed was 26 billion, but what we are fighting for here...
What's your point of
Kajwang,
order, Senator?
I am on a point of order. Can we be able to implement the rules of the House? I'm on a point of information to Kajwang.
What is your point of order?
Let me just finish.
You are on a point of
I'm informing him because I'm informing Kajwang. So Kajwang, what I wanted to ask you to fight for is if we can be able to fight for this money, that by now, if we can be able to insist as a House so that we get the entire 54 billion, you will be better placed to be able to get more money for your particular county. And as I finish...
just go straight to your information. You're already debating. You're eating into Senator Kajwang's time. Inform.
I'm not contributing. Okay.
Finish up, Senator.
So as I finish, Kajwang, on this point of information, I think that your pain is also expressed by some senators who are not informed that actually they needed to have fought for 22 billion in Dora that was supposed to go to their county. It's very disappointing to see somebody like Lebanon complaining here about very small money here. When you are given an opportunity to put more money to your people, then you kill it. So Kajwang, fight for the bigger pie that is here than the smaller one that we are allocating right now.
The mic. Thank you, Senator, for Migori, for duly informing me. Mr. Speaker, with that information in mind, we must reflect on the reason why the Equalization Fund was established. Article 2041 of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, talks about the Equalization Fund. And in all our dealings, and I keep saying this, that this House is not the Supreme Court, it is not the High Court, it is not the Court of Appeal. We must always look at the spirit of the law in as much as we look at the letter of the law. Mr. Speaker, this money was meant to go towards counties and regions that have been marginalized as a result of government policy, and the most famous being the sessional paper number 10 of 1965. Mr. Speaker, there is, and I've seen some of my colleagues who sat in the National Assembly, and I'm glad that they're now here to see the reality of some of the decisions that they made. Let us be honest to the nation. It got to a point where everyone wanted to get a piece of this money. We moved from the original marginalized counties of 14, and today there are 34. We argued that there were pockets of deprivation everywhere. Mr. Speaker, it was argued that even if you went to Westlands constituency and went to that ward where Runda is, that there's a slum called Githogoro, and therefore there is deprivation there, and as a result, Westlands should also be able to get part of the Equalization Fund. Mr. Speaker, I see the senator for Nairobi is very, very excited. You'd get an area like Karen where there's a lot of wealth, and there's some pocket of deprivation, and you'd take the money that was supposed to go to Turkana, the money that was supposed to go to Mandera, and Marsabit, and Baringo, and such places, and bring it to Nairobi or bring it to Nyeri. Mr. Speaker, we lost it when we made the argument that this money should not go through the devolved structures, and it should go through the structures of the provincial administration, which, if we are honest with ourselves, has no place in Kenya's political and administrative architecture, because we made a commitment as a country that the system of provincial administration that was meant to control and tame and contain black Africans, that system needed to have been reviewed and overhauled with the advent of devolution. What did we do? We took the county commissioner and put him right at the center of decision-making in deciding on projects and implementing projects under the Equalization Fund. To make it worse, Mr. Speaker, even we, the senators, we legislated ourselves out of this matter, because at the county level, the chair of the committee that determines the projects is a county commissioner. Then you'll have the CEC finance for the county. Then you'll have the chairs of CDF, the CDF fund managers. In my county, I've got 8 CDF funds, so 8 of them will be sitting there. Then there'll be one person representing the county assembly, and then there'll be technical people from ministries. Mr. Speaker, this was absurd. And we made arguments that county governments are just thieves eating money, that we should not put additional money to them. Mr. Speaker, we have a deficit of trust in this country. If we think that the people we have in counties are thieves, why do we keep voting them back? Why can't we kick them out of office? There are a lot of instruments we have in the Constitution and various laws. We cannot keep making legislation on the basis of suspicion. This House should not sit aside and watch devolution, the structures of devolution and county governments dismantled, because sometimes if I see Captain Roba has bought a new car, I start thinking that he has bought that new car from Dora or from Kara, not knowing that Captain Roba receives a salary of $1 million shillings and is capable of buying a new car. Mr. Speaker, we made a mistake. And Mr. Speaker, I've just been talking to the then chair of the Delegated Legislation Committee, Senator Faki. The National Treasury made a commitment to this House that please pass these regulations, let us unlock funding to the marginalized areas, we will come back and amend the regulations. Mr. Speaker, those regulations have not been amended today. Where is the National Treasury? The chairman of Delegated Legislation Committee, Senator Mofaya, you must demand from the National Treasury to bring in the amendments that they promised. And Mr. Speaker, for this, we are all equally guilty, because this came in the heat of the campaigns. And some of us thought we would be in government so that we could change these things once we're in government. Now I challenge those who got into government through the back door and through windows. Can you now amend those regulations, because you stridently stood on the floor of this House saying that those regulations should not pass? Mr. Speaker, the sunset to this particular provision is fast approaching. And let us be bold enough to come up with legislation to extend the duration for this financing. But let us not use that as a window to bring on board the 13 other counties that are not included here. The other counties have got money through the DORA, through the KARA that this Senate appropriates every other year. Let us not mix things. Why is Turkana not the richest county in this country, Mr. Speaker? As Senator Lomenen had said
Senator
earlier...
Boni, what is your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, I rise on standing order number 105. Mr. Speaker, did you hear the distinguished senator from Homa Bay allege that we got our way into government through the back door? Mr. Speaker, under standing order number 105, he has the responsibility to demonstrate the factuality of what he's stating. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, he owes us in government and Kenyans who voted for us overwhelmingly an apology and a withdrawal of that statement.
Senator Kajwang, you heard that.
Mr. Speaker,
substantiate the comments made?
The Constitution talks of 47 plus 1 government. We have 1 national government and 47 county governments. When I talked about the government, I don't know why Senator Halwale is jittery. I don't mean that government that he's holding brief for. It might as well be a government in Homabay or a government in Migori. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Senator Okech is advising me to use a proverb that is a bit unparliamentary. But it says in my language that the person who fouls the air is always the first to start a fight. And so Senator Kalwale might be guilty of something. Mr. Speaker, I was talking about the sunset to this particular provision. Let us be bold to extend it. Let us be bold to review the regulations. Let us be bold to review the policy. Mr. Speaker, it was said on the floor of this House, and I know some of the characters who work within this space, because some of them have gone to school with them, and sometimes they inform me informally, that the development of this next marginalization policy is going on. And CRA is going around to the counties. And they are visiting counties without the knowledge of county governments, without the knowledge of senators who are supposed to represent those counties. I think we must call the National Treasury and the Equalization Fund Committee to order, that their development of the next policy alongside the CRA must be one that is consultative, must be one that involves the county governments, the county governors, and the representatives and defenders of counties, which in this case are the members of the Senate, as well as the members of the National Assembly, who represents the interests of the people in Parliament. Mr. Speaker, finally, on sessional paper number 10 of 1965, it is not far-fetched when the senator for Turkana says that in future, Kenya is going to rely on the northern frontier for its wealth. It was not too long ago when the collapse of great civilizations like Persia, when the collapse of great cities like Baghdad and Damascus, and power shifted to what we call the global West, these areas were seen as places that offered no promise except nomads and camels and lots of sand. Mr. Speaker, when the British discovered oil in Saudi Arabia and the British incorporated British Petroleum, Mr. Speaker, Saudi Arabia suddenly became important. Baghdad again became important. Damascus became important. That part of the world, which was formerly a great civilization, just like Turkana, where humankind started. Mr. Speaker, when we find fossils in Turkana, it tells you that Turkana was a seat of a great ancient civilization. It shall come to pass that this country will start looking up north. Today, we think the north offers nothing but violence. We think the north offers nothing but poverty. We think when our children from the north go to schools in Kiambu, we tell them to go back to their counties, as if some counties are more important than the other. We assume that the money that goes to counties is money that comes from certain communities or comes from certain business people. Mr. Speaker, the news that should go to those people who are peddling division, sowing discord, saying that the children of parents from Northeastern, from Turkana, from Mandera, from Marsabit should not be seen in Kiambu, should not be seen in Nairobi, should not be seen in Nakuru. Mr. Speaker, these are the people who are out to destroy this great nation called Kenya. And when Kenya is destroyed, and the areas that were developed as a result of sessional paper number 10, Mr. Speaker, cannot thrive if there's no peace. Because we provide services, we provide agriculture, we are in real estate, things that cannot thrive when things go south the way they are going south in Sudan. Mr. Speaker, when those guys who are telling our children not to study in schools in specific counties, when they split and when they destroy this country, the people of the north, they will know how to defend themselves with AK-47s. The people of the north, because they are used to adversity and hardship, Mr. Speaker, finally they will extract the oil that lies under that soil, the water that lies in Turkana. Mr. Speaker, all I'm calling for is a government that looks at the big picture. All I'm calling for is a government that revisits and revises the injustices of the past. Mr. Speaker, all I'm calling for is a better definition of bottom-up. Bottom-up not being seen as stealing money from the poor to the pockets of the rich. Bottom-up meaning that the marginalized areas must be
what's
prioritized
the
in
point of
development
order,
and planning
Senator?
in this republic.
Mr. Speaker, I rise at the pain of again asking that